This is Bob Ambrogi. Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a dive into AllRize version 3.0. It's new AI powered practice management system that's recently been updated with a bunch of new features. I'm really excited about this because the last time we really had an in-depth conversation was a year ago at Startup Alley when you guys were participants in that in Chicago at ABA Tech Show.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to diving in and seeing much more depth what you've built here and what you've developed since then a year ago. So joining me here today are Erik Ruda, the CEO. Erik, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
And Robert Jameson, the Chief Product Officer. Robert, welcome.
Yeah, again, thank you, Bob, for the time. We're excited to be here.
So, Erik, why don't you kind of kick it off with giving us a little bit of the background of the company? What is AllRize all about, and what's your focus?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I'm Erik Ruda, like you mentioned, CEO of AllRize. I'm a 25-year technology veteran, focused mostly on enterprise solutions. Before AllRize, I built Rise Technologies, which is an IT services company specializing in cybersecurity, 24/7 help desk support, fractional CIO, CTO services, specifically serving law firms. So I saw firsthand on how firms were managing their technology and a lot of the pain points that they were facing. Given that, I decided to build AllRize after seeing the fragmented technology stacks that really just didn't work well together. Law firms typically are buying tools one at a time and then figuring out a way to try to integrate them later, creating data silos and operational inefficiencies. And from my experience in enterprise solutions, I knew there was a better way. That insight led to the creation of AllRize, which essentially is a comprehensive, integrated practice management platform built to create a unified solution. So AllRize really came from hands-on experience, seeing what was working and what wasn't working at law firms.
And what is it? I mean, talk a little bit more about what it is that distinguishes AllRize from some of the other products out there on the market. I mean, I know you said you kind of looked around at what was out there and you thought that there was something better needed for the legal market. How did you go about building that?
Well, we wanted to rethink how law firms use technology, not as a patchwork of tools, but like I mentioned before, as a unified system. We decided that AllRize would be natively integrated with Microsoft 365. More than probably 90% of law firms around the use of Microsoft 365. We also wanted to decided to make it build it on top of Dynamics 365 technology and Microsoft Copilot to fully leverage the capabilities and continuous innovations resulting from Microsoft R&D investment. We started this journey set on some guiding principles. One was to create a unified platform that could really enable core business functions like marketing, intake, matter management, document management, and accounting, along with the ability to effectively report and analyze all of the data in those modules. We wanted to support the full legal workflow covering all critical functions while allowing firms to grow and expand as needed. We wanted to utilize modular designs to allow firms to get started with specific modules that were most critical to them. And they didn't have to necessarily adopt the entire platform to be successful. We integrate with all the other platforms and different legal technologies. We also wanted to ensure there's a deep native Microsoft 365 integration with tools like Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, Copilot, Excel, PowerPoint, and the whole Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And we really wanted to utilize generative AI and agentic AI to help automate work and make sure that we're thinking about those things from day one.
So it's a complete system, but also a modular system. So law firms can kind of decide what they need, what works for them, and implement it accordingly, right?
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. And who are your target customers? I mean, what size firm is this most appropriate for?
It's highly configurable, so it can support almost any law firm, really regardless of practice area. However, our primary customer right now is mid-sized law firms, typically around 500 employees, and our market research shows that this is the segment that feels the most pain most acutely, with too many disparate products, poor data silos, and all those causing productivity challenges.
I agree. I mean, we've got, a number of clients, they're starting to get at that level. You're starting to get more teams. You're starting to get people that are starting to specialize in areas of the business, whether it's a billing clerk or it's a team of people that are responsible for intake, right? So we're starting to see those groups of people at that level that need that additional system. And then also with those additional people comes coordination and other things that are, just going to be process and workflow driven. You start then having to try and manage people, right? So as Erik said, we really start to see like that's the sweet spot of where a lot of this pain comes together, and where I can't just have one person doing all the work. And also, I'm not at a point where I can just go out and hire, consultants to do every piece of the business for me. I need to be effective with my money. I need to have a solution that's going to work for me and go end to end.
And as I said, you recently released version 3.0 of AllRize. Are there a couple of highlights there that you want to talk about, or would you rather kind of just start to walk through it and show us what's new and different and what's in the platform? How do you want to go?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do for for your audience, Bob, is I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the product as a whole. So I'm going to start and just kind of give a real quick overview of the application. We're not going to go deep, but I'm going to go just kind of through the application to kind of pay off what Erik just talked about with the 6 modules, and then we'll dive into a few of those capabilities that are specific to the 3.0 release that we're proud and excited to share. So, all right, so. As Erik teed up, right, there's really 6 modules that encompass what is the AllRize platform. And so from, kind of going through those modules from top to bottom, the process all starts with marketing, right? So you have a marketing set of capabilities that are really going to allow you to do those things like creating bulk emails, being able to send text messages to your clients, being able to create things like web forms and landing pages so that as your clients are trying to reach out to you, you can either use the marketing module or you can use the stuff you create in the marketing module and you can post that to your own website. So it's really enabling you to have those kind of landing pages and data collection that you would have on the intake side, and also just reaching out to those prospective leads and clients that you would have. Now, again, throughout the whole system, the nice thing is we're going to have the data flow from point A all the way through the end, right? So as you begin to collect data in the marketing module, because it's on Dynamics and 365 and because it's on the ecosphere, that data is going to move from step to step to step. And I'll talk about those as we go through the capabilities. But the marketing pages are all about setting up, how do you want to reach and contact your clients? It's about creating that customer journey so that as the customer is interacting with that marketing material, you're able to track it, you're able to see it flow through the system, you're able to understand where those leads are coming from, and then you can adjust your strategy for marketing based on that information, right? So, it's important to have good, clear understanding metrics around your marketing side to know where your spend is. The next piece that we want to look at is our customer relationship management, or CRM piece. That also is referred to as our intake process. So coming out of marketing, hopefully they did a wonderful job of generating leads. Now I've got people calling in, I've got people emailing in, I've got people that are referred to from friends and family, and I've got referral partners, other law firms that are referring business to your firm. So all of those different sources are coming in. All of those are becoming leads in the application. And so that's kind of the first step of CRM, is capturing all that lead information, being able to have those integrations with systems that are, your overnight call answering service, your email system, and being able to recognize when I got an email that comes in from a different source, what is that email, and be able to quickly assign that to a lead. We know, based on different practice areas, each practice area can have its own special uniqueness to it. And so as you're tracking those leads, the types of things that you're going to gather, the data you're going to collect, is going to be specific to those individual practice areas. The questions that we're going to ask somebody on a personal injury side are not the same we're going to ask that are creating for a family will and trust, right? So the intake questionnaires and forms that you're going to need to be able to track and manage, AllRize is going to help you to create those by practice area and be able to help you to filter those leads out of the system. We also know, unfortunately, there's a lot of, there's a lot of leads that are not good quality leads, right? I don't need to take on a case for a Nigerian prince that is hoping to give me $1,000, right? We know that noise is going to come through our systems. And so the lead also helps me to get rid of that noise quickly and efficiently. And as we go through that, the goal of the lead process is to get it to an opportunity. So at this point, again, kind of in that sweet spot, we're seeing intake teams or intake people responsible for the lead. It's their job to kind of clear that and get it in front of, get the quality leads in front of the attorneys for them to understand the case. And so at that point, after you've qualified the lead, it'll go into an opportunity. And an opportunity just means that this is a good opportunity for us and that I need to then have the attorney and the team start to reach out to them, start to understand if this is a case we want to take on. Hopefully, again, that's a quick process. That's a quick couple of phone calls. Yep, you're injured. I see you're hurt. You've got a case. I'm going to send you a retention letter. I'm going to send you perhaps a collection of fees if it's something more like a will and trust. Maybe there's some additional retainer fees or something based on the practice area. But in that opportunity phase, it's all about creating that relationship with the client, and then winning that case so that we're that opportunity so that we can convert it to a matter. Right now, like I said, what's also really critically important here is that data is moving from place to place to place through the system. So the fact that it came from a marketing source is tracked into the lead. The fact that I gathered information about that lead, maybe I ran my initial conflict check at the lead phase. Maybe I did it at the opportunity phase, but I'm going to run that conflict check and make sure that, this is a good opportunity for the firm and it's not of any risk for us. So again, integrated system, you run the conflict check, the conflict automatically gets saved into the document management location. And also it has the ability to then send that conflict out to the rest of the firm to be able to say, hey, does anybody have any issues if we take on this case? Right. All that's happening in the opportunity phase.
The so many practice management systems you see start after all this has happened, after the marketing, right, after the lead evaluation has happened, and you take them on as a client, and then the practice management starts. It's really interesting that you're starting right from scratch here.
Yeah, we really wanted to make sure we captured that, that part of the workflow being from end to end. And so we've got some great features that are baked in to do that. And like I said, the data is going to move along with it. So if you ask a questionnaire and you ask him a whole bunch of questions about the accident, and now I go to the matter, that questionnaire came with it and all the data came with it, and is accessible then if I need to query or ask questions, or if I gather documents, those are going to come along for the ride, right? So, winning the opportunity creates the matter and automatically moves that data to me to the next phase. All right. So let me jump into matters here for a second. All right. So from a matter perspective, this is where I do the bulk of my work, right? So this is where I'm actually engaged in managing the case or the matter itself. And so there's a number of things that I need to be able to look at from a matter perspective. Let me go ahead and open it up and I'll show you one here. By the way, this is our demo database. All of this data is demo data. None of this is client information. I can't talk about security later on and then tell you we're using client data in a demo. That would be bad. So all of this is fictitious, made up demo data. Just like you guys are using AI, we have the ability to use AI to do some really cool data things. But from a matter perspective, right? So what are we doing in the matter itself? Well, for one, we've got workflow, right? So I've got different tasks that are going to be assigned to the members of the team. So from a task perspective, all your tasks can be in there. You can drive dependencies in your task. You can say, okay, when I complete a particular phase or stage of this particular workflow, it automatically creates a new task for me. So let's say that I'm pre-trial, right? And that's one of the stages that I want to track. I've got all my tasks and stuff leading up to the trial information. As soon as I say I'm in trial, automatically you can have additional tasks pop up, right? So whatever that workflow is that works for you in your practice area, you can create those tasks with dependencies. You can create those dependencies so that they're time-based. You can say, okay, this task needs to start after this one. This task I need to send a follow-up email, for example. That follow-up email is going to happen 2 days after I complete this task. And then that email through automation can automatically be generated and automatically be sent, right? So it's managing that task, and workflow is a big piece of your matter management. Managing all your documents and files is obviously a big part of it. And I'm going to talk more about document management here in just a second. But keeping track of all the documents that are coming in is a huge piece of it. Right in the middle of my screen, you see the timeline. And I want to talk about that for just a minute as well, because the timeline captures all of the other activities that I'm doing. Let's say that I'm making emails, I'm making phone calls, I'm setting up appointments, right? All of that kind of stuff. We talked about the level of integration that the system has. So when I create a calendar entry, right? When I create an appointment, that's not only creating it on the timeline in AllRize, that's creating the Outlook calendar entry. And it's putting it on your Outlook calendar. So it's not like I'm managing a calendar within the system and a calendar back in my regular email system. I've got one calendar, right? And it allows me to just keep everything, wherever I want to do it. So if I want to do that work in Outlook and I want to set up the invitation from there, I can set it up from there and I can link it to the matter. Or vice versa, if I'm in AllRize and I'm already in the matter and I say, oh yes, that reminds me, I need to call Daisy, I can create an appointment from right there, right? So I can go right into the system and say, yep, go ahead and make an appointment, or I can connect that to my phone system, right? So I can literally just make a phone call from here. I can use Teams to be the note taker for that phone call, and all that activity can then be tracked with the matter itself, right? So the activities that you're doing, capturing emails, phone calls, notes, all those kinds of things right in the matter itself, or in that source system that you're using it for, right? Outlook, being in Word, right? Whatever you're doing that in, that add-in on the other side can say, take the work you did over there and link it back to the matter. Does that kind of make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Cool.
Could I quickly ask you a question back on the workflows? Just are the workflows all configured? Are the law firms able to configure their own workflows, or do those come as preset kind of workflows, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have a lot of experience, but we don't have experience in exactly what that firm's policies and workflows need to look like. So we will, as advisors, we will help to guide and try and give some suggestions on where we think, when we come in and do our implementation, for example, the first thing we do is not start implementing. The first thing we do is start looking at what you're doing today. Right. And we want to understand how our clients are using their existing processes, what their workflow looks like. And then we'll either make recommendations, say, let's tweak this a little bit, or let's just go ahead and do it that way. But the tasks themselves can be done by the teams, right? There's no having to call and pick up 1-800, call Erik and make him go code something. In this system, I can go right into the task workflow and I can say, I need to create a new task, or I need to create a new task that always happens for this particular practice type, okay? And similarly with things like the documentation, right? So when I do my documents, everybody has a different folder structure that they're going to create, and they're going to put all their different documents. Some of them are going to keep their litigation stuff in one folder. They're going to keep their correspondence in another folder, right? So just whatever your folder structure looks like, you're going to configure that however you want in SharePoint. And again, the back and forth between that, or NetDocs, or whatever your system is, but the two-way sync back and forth between those systems allows us to say, here's the structure that needs to be in place, and let's put the documents in that. And then the workflow allows it to say, hey, when I create a brand new matter, go create these 6 folders for me, right? Because that's what they're going to need to be able to do their work, right? So create that workflow automatically. Did that answer the question?
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so after you've kind of got that workflow, you've got your activities, and the next piece is all of your financing. So you're going to be able to keep track of all of your expenses, your flat fees, your time reporting. All of those kind of capabilities are going to be baked into the system as well. And I'm not going to go dive deep into those today, but you can track all of those different expense types. You can then you can generate invoices and pre-bills to go see, how all that information transcribes. Like everything else, that's practice area specific. So if I have a particular line of business or a particular practice area that doesn't do any time reporting, that's fine. You can say, just turn that off and and that doesn't get in my way. Or likewise, I may have a particular practice area that says, you know what, I do time tracking, but it's for internal use only. Don't bill it, right? And so keep that out of the billing process and just, maintain that, because I use that data to understand the effectiveness of my team, and maybe not necessarily from a billing perspective. So, those are some of the kind of management capabilities that you would have. And then at the end of the day, you're going to close everything out, and Erik here in just a little bit is going to talk about how do we close and how do we get the retention, implement things like the retention policy and stuff like that as we move towards close. We talked about document management, and document management is both ingrained in every one of these pieces. I may have documents in lead, opportunities, and matters, but it also kind of sits on its own. And so with the system and having document management, it does provide that file repository. It does allow me to do things like version control. One of the things that I love to see is that network drive that has send this copy to client version 1, send this copy to client version 2, send to client version 3, send to client final, send to client final, right? I love seeing that, just create a copy of the file and rename it as something else as my version control system. I can still do that, but my preferred method is use a system that has that version control baked into it. That way we can all edit the file. If I'm looking for a review from 5 of my peers, they can get in there, they can do the document, and I can see the full revision history of this thing as I move it towards finalizing it for client preparation. All right. The next module is the accounting piece. So from an accounting perspective, again, a complete billing system, being able to do things like the pre-bills. We talked about those. We talked a little bit about doing the invoicing, and then also going all the way down into the general ledger, right? So I need to be able to keep track of my operating accounts for most of our clients, the trust accounts. I need to be able to do some of those kind of features. And I'll talk about that here in just some of the enhancements that we've made to it with 3.0 in just a few minutes. But there is a complete accounting piece of this as well. All right. So then the last piece that we, want to go through is the compliance side. And again, Erik's going to talk about more on this here in just a few minutes, but from a compliance perspective, it's really more than just compliance anymore. It's really moving towards a governance, risk, and compliance, right? The full GRC look and feel of what lawyers are having to deal with today, and what firms are having to deal with. So governance is going to define the rules of your organization. Risk management is going to identify and mitigate any risk to your organization, both from your clients' data protection, your firm's reputation, right? All that plays into the risk that you're assuming when you're taking on data. And then the compliance side delivers the proof points that you need to show that, hey, we did take care of your data. Hey, auditor, hey, ABA, we are doing the things that we said we were going to do, right? So that complete package of governance, risk, and compliance is always important. Sometimes it's something that we let kind of slide just a little bit. And now what we're seeing, especially with AI, is we're seeing a resurgence of saying, hey, we got to make sure we're protecting this stuff. Too many high-profile cases of data getting out recently in firms. We need to make sure that we're protecting that information for our clients and for ourselves and our own reputation.
Absolutely.
All right. So let me talk a little bit about the 3.0 capabilities for just a minute. So from a 3.0 perspective, the first thing that we did was we enhanced some of the capabilities around our time entries. And so I'm not going to go in there today because, again, time permitting, and some other companies have done this as well. But AI is an area where, again, we've been able to take advantage of some really cool features and technologies to be able to say, hey, if you're having that meeting and you've got that appointment on your calendar, and you can start a timer at the beginning of the meeting, or you can stop, or you can have the AI agent be tracking that information and come back and say, hey, you just wrapped up a 30-minute meeting. Do you want me to book a time entry for you? So those kinds of capabilities and enabling those kinds of agents is something that, we felt was really important at the time that we started doing it. And we're seeing that validated because we're seeing other companies saying, hey, yeah, I need that as well. Or we're seeing other providers saying, hey, I have an AI tracking engine that's going to, help with time management. And we've got that baked into the application already. Goal being, I really want to make sure I'm not losing billable hours. I want to make sure that my resources are being used effectively. I want to be able to have those for the managing partner. I want to be able to have those metrics that I can be able to see as my team. If my team is supposed to have 6.5 billable hours per day, is that what I've got? Or am I way above or way below where that target range is, right? So I can begin to manage the KPIs as long as I have the data. If I only have 2 people actually recording their time, I can't really track KPIs, right? So things like automating that, making that part of the process earlier. Nobody enjoys collecting their time or doing time entries. So the more that we can take that mundane task out of their life, the better for it.
So
And
is it
we've
going to
added some
also help you
capabilities there.
create the entry itself? Is it going to say 30
Exactly.
minutes in meeting with client or something like
Right.
that? Or
Right. And again, where we're at with AI, and Erik will probably double down on this here in just a minute, but is AI is still in a lot of ways in its infancy. And just like I wouldn't take a brand new employee and say, great, hey, you've been with the firm for 2 days. Why don't you go have a conversation with our number one client and go promise them the world, right? In a lot of ways is still in its infancy as well. And so, the approach that we're taking is use it for what it's really good at and proven that it can do, but provide guidance in those areas where it still needs, to develop and learn and grow. So something like what you just mentioned, right? So can it create an automatic entry? It could book it automatically for me, but because of the potential that it could be, that it could come back and be booking stuff that you don't want it to book, our recommended approach, again, you can configure it however you want, but our recommended approach is, hey, user, I noticed you just finished this. Would you like me to book this for you? And it just gives that human interaction to the process.
Yeah.
And we recommend that
sense.
really for anybody that's looking at AI usage. Consider where it's at, what the risk is if it does something wrong, and then apply the appropriate policies and procedures to make sure that it's doing the right thing.
Yeah. It still prods you to get that time, and it still gives you the chance to make sure it's accurate and
Exactly.
properly
Exactly.
recorded. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about document management, and here's where, again, I'm going to show a couple of different things in here. So again, Copilot completely integrated into the application. So from a Copilot perspective, one of the things I like about Copilot is it allows me to use natural language. And for anybody that's used the system and had to try and set up filters, we know that filters can be a bit of a pain sometimes to try and do. Sometimes I can only set up one filter criteria for a grid, and I really want to sort on 2 things. Sometimes it's hard to know how to create a filter. How do I do the and or logic, or how do I create the filter? Here's where Copilot is just really cool, right? I can say something like, show me all my personal injury cases. And so now, right, the Copilot's going to go build that behind the scene query. You can see it's got an advanced filter. If I want to go see what it actually created as the filter, I can go do that. But quite honestly, most of us don't care. Did it give me the right results? Did it show me the information that I wanted to see? Perfect. I can now filter on all of my personal injury cases, right? And so I love that aspect about using using tools like Copilot in our day-to-day matter management.
Yeah.
Let me go back to our specific matter again. Go to files. All right. So again, you have the ability to create an AI agent on your documents. And this is a really good use of AI that's really low risk, because I'll explain why in here in just a minute. But let's say that in my case here, I'm going to have a conversation with Daisy, right? I need to have a phone conversation with her. Last time I talked to her as an attorney, I knew that she was going to go to the MRI place and get an MRI done, and she sent me over what that was, but now I'm going to go have a conversation with her. So I want to know what the results of that were, right? So I've got her MRI results sitting here, but instead of going through all the details, some of these documents that these lawyers are asked to process are hundreds of pages long. Summarize Daisy's MRI results. I'll let your team edit out the delay there. All right, so Copilot comes back then and gives us the summary of the results. It indicates, again, all fictitious data, but it indicates that she had a right side chest pain. Here's the injuries. Here's the injuries to her shoulder, what the overall impression was, right? So Copilot's coming in and it's giving me some talking points that I can have and understand with her, and also giving me some information that I can use in terms of filing damages later on this particular case. And the other thing that I really like about this is it's telling me where it got the information. So let's say that I was searching the entire document library for something, right? I can now not only see what Copilot brought back, but I can see the source material that it used to give me the answer. And now as an attorney, I can trust, but I can verify, I can go in and look and see. And I especially recommend that if you're looking for things like, case positions and stuff like that, where AI is today, make sure you do that double check, go in there and make sure that the case is representing the position that perhaps AI told you to take on this particular matter. Just do your due diligence and double check that. But it did the heavy lift. It went through the document. It found the places where information might be valuable for me and brought it back.
Useful.
Okay. All right. So then, the next major piece that we have been enhancing in the application was all around the integrated accounting and compliance. So adding new features to the accounting side. Not only do we have the deep GL integration, but it's really an area of the system we feel like's been underserved traditionally, at least underserved from a detached perspective, meaning that, the data is just not integrated well between you're using something for accounting, but it may not be as seamless of information for the law firm as it could be. And so providing this in 3.0, things like being able to do a three-way reconciliation where I'm reconciling those bank accounts with the trust account, with the actual matters, and making sure that everything is correct, being able to review the pre-bills, being able to set up things like billing agreements so that for my institutional clients, let's say that I'm working with an insurance company, they're feeding me cases. Can I get information back to them in a timely way? Can I manage stuff at that kind of client level versus matter level? Those kind of capabilities. So we've got some really cool stuff in there. But in the interest of time, I want to turn this back over to Erik and let Erik talk about the compliance side of the equation.
All right, Erik, you want to share your screen now? There you go. Looks good.
So like I mentioned earlier, we handle a lot of cybersecurity with our sister company. And we're also seeing some of the challenges that firms are dealing with from a data governance and security perspective, especially, now in the age of AI, where data is being pulled in a lot of different places and different models and different systems that firms are trying out. In regard to governance, something that we really wanted to, focus on was data retention, ethical walls, AI use policies, data sensitivity labels, making sure that, we're preventing unauthorized access and sharing, along with, compliance and audit logs. We've done that through the implementation of Microsoft Purview. Since we're on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, we've fully natively integrated all of Purview throughout AllRize. And something that you can see here, this is the records management module, and there are a lot of different rules per, obviously, practice area, per jurisdiction for how long you need to keep files. Let's say, for example, maybe in personal injury, once the matter closes, you need to, have it saved for 7 years. A lot of firms are very strict on this, meaning that once something is up for disposition or be able to be deleted, they want to delete it as soon as possible to get rid of that liability. And then there are other firms that just keep everything forever, which is not uncommon. So what we, really also wanted to focus on now with the growing level of data and documents, to really have that records management and that life cycle where you can have an event, for example, when a matter closes, if it matches or meets the criteria of a specific label, then it will wait 7 years before trying to destroy it. And then when it does destroy it, it gives you communications, and then you have a list of everything up for destruction. And then obviously you can go in and do reviews, and there may be reasons why you want to keep things longer, but you have the ability to fully come in here and take care of all of your records management needs. We also have a information protection piece of that. And this is really how Microsoft Copilot is really kind of governed and secured by Microsoft Purview, right? It's one of the ways to do it. And here you have the ability, if files need to be encrypted, you can have sensitivity labels, encrypt the data, and we can also apply auto labeling for policies. So this is something that I like to kind of show. So, law firms obviously have a lot of sensitive data. And here you can apply auto labeling policies. So if you were creating a policy, let's say, for example, if you're a personal injury firm or a firm that stores a lot of medical information, you can come in here, and it is global, but let's just go to the United States. You can go to medical and health information, click on regular. And then here you can see that it's going to go through all of the information inside of AllRize and look for all of these indicators. Look for health or medical forms, look for any type of medical terms and conditions. You also have the ability to look at different US financial data. So if there's credit card numbers or anything like that, it'll go ahead and flag all that data, all the data inside of AllRize, in Outlook, in SharePoint, OneDrive, the entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And that really allows you to limit what is being pulled into models and into Copilot. And these labels follow the data and documents along their entire life cycle. So everything within the ecosystems honors that. So you can't, for example, pull in somebody's personal information and having the model train it, something like that, which is really important, and going to be increasingly important, as we move through the era of AI.
All the real, really sort of underscoring the advantages of being developed on the Microsoft ecosystem, because then you have all these capabilities here.
Yeah,
Right.
everything's enterprise grade security out of the box, and then we're just making sure that that's properly integrated, natively into AllRize and everything that.
Right, because there's a lot of firms, rightfully so. They're trying to take advantage of AI. They're trying to figure out how it can create efficiencies. They don't want to be left out. We get that. But the risk is that you're taking on a third party AI system that doesn't have some of these security features.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of worst case scenario. Let's say that you put a whole bunch of your stuff into queries to try and help you figure out how to do this matter, and somebody else can then say, tell me about all the cases that had these criteria in my area, and they somehow come up with the information that was in my law firm, right? That's a bad scenario. And that's a bad day at the office, right? So being able to protect that data is critically important.
I know that we have just a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to check in on whether there's anything else that you wanted to show before our time runs out here.
No, we're happy to provide more for anybody that wants to do more. We recognize that the point of this is to kind of show off, what we've added in 3.0, but also give some of your people an introduction into AllRize. We hope we've done that today, and we're around if anybody needs to follow up or ask questions. We just thank you for the opportunity to show some of the stuff that we are seeing coming as we look forward to what are we doing next. being able to understand. We're expecting governance to continue to have a bigger and bigger play. We're expecting companies to have some challenges. We're going to try and do our best to keep our clients from having challenges with this area, and it'll shape our next set of features.
All right. Well, Erik, Robert, thanks so much. Really interesting. I'm really glad to have gotten this overview.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Well, so you've been watching, learning all about the latest version of AllRize, version 3.0, and just recently released. Thanks again for showing that, and we'll have information on our webpage on how to connect to the site and find out more about the company and contact information and everything else you're going to want. So thanks a lot. Good to see you guys.